intriguing, and informative guests. And you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And our guest today is Sean David Morton. Producer Sean Bell is trying to reach him, but we hopefully he'll join us very soon here. I'll tell you a little bit about Sean before we get him on the show. Dr. Sean David Morton attended Stanford University and received a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a Political Science degree with minors in Organic Chemistry and Astronomy from the University of Southern California. He received his PhD in Political Psychology, specializing in therapeutic counseling from the International Institute of Alternative Medicine. He also studied astrology at the famed Exeter College at Oxford University. Sean's adventures at Area 51, his pioneering work in remote viewing, and his stunning predictions of the future brought him international recognition as the #1 guest on Coast to Coast AM, where host Art Bell called him America's prophet and my all-time favorite guest. Excuse me. Sean is a multi-award-winning independent filmmaker and has been a reporter, writer, producer, director for Hard Copy, Sightings, Strange Universe, Unsolved Mysteries, Ancient Aliens, Paranormal, Borderline, and has appeared on countless radio and TV shows. He is the author of Black Seraph and The Dark Prophet, 5 thrillers about the inner workings of the Vatican and the Jesuits. His latest book, Sands of Time, Volume 1 and 2, the true memoir of a man in black, describes 40 years of the adventures of the top-level director of the shadow government. He has authored over a dozen screenplays and is currently working on the funding for a film and media distribution company. Sean David Morton had his first visions as a child when he predicted the death of a man that was like a second father to him, astronaut and American hero, Commander Pilot Virgil I. Gus was one of the original Mercury astronauts, thought by many to be picked to be the first man on the moon, was tragically burned alive with fellow astronauts Edward H. White and Roger Chaffee during a routine ground systems check on Apollo 1 spacecraft. All 3 men were close family members, and Sean's Irish grandmother, Ruth Croft, was the only one to take heed of Sean's many useful visions and warnings and encouraged his alibis and abilities in secret. Okay, Dr. Lessin. Hi, honey. Would you like to say something, and then we'll check with Sean and see if...
Well, one of the interesting things, because we are going through the same process as Sean David did, is when you interview lots and lots of people who have been experiencers, lots and lots of people who have actually talked with extraterrestrials, you get an overall picture, and it doesn't matter if the government has its naysayers and trolls that they put on you. The overwhelming truth of the picture of what's really going on starts coming in. Well, Sean David has been at this a long time, and he has gathered all the information. He is just a walking treasure. We are so happy to have him on this show.
So our producer, Sean, did Sean show up? Were you able to get him? On Bell?
In any case,
okay, we'll keep going.
Let me just give you a little bit of a background. I'm an anthropologist. And so what is apparent from the ancient works that I've studied and the new stuff that I've been studying is that Earth has been repeatedly visited by all kinds, many different alien races at different times. And in more recent times, the Anunnaki from the planet Nibiru, who came here, have been on the surface. And well, it looks like somebody just came in. I heard Skype happening.
No. Keep going.
Okay, and so anyway, just the reptilians went underground and stayed underground, and the Anunnaki basically spread, and that's we are their adapted genome over the surface. And there are repeatedly races of extraterrestrials that are interested in Earth that meet regularly with Earthlings. And for the last long time, since 2025 BCE, Earth has been controlled by Marduk, a prince from Nibiru. And the king of Nibiru, a fellow named Anu, abdicated in favor of his grandson, Nannar, who became king and began infiltrating the highest levels of the pyramids of control in this society, which had been run by Marduk and his minions, the Illuminati, the royals, the intelligence services, the clandestine military, the big business and the banks and so forth. This has all been Marduk's people. And recently Marduk had been parading as the supreme Rockefeller, like the second coming of Christ, only better, because he's supposed to be one of these reborn souls that's come specially to help free us of the matrix that before he was redeemed. He's the redeemed Marduk, he says. And now he's coming to give us a kinder world under his dictatorship. Well, I got to tell you, I don't trust these extraterrestrials. Anyway, that's a little bit of a background, but Sean David can actually give you the details of the migrations of peoples. And are you there yet, Sean?
No, he's not.
He's also going to talk about what happened with the astronauts like Grissom, who was the people that started to blab on it. We already have a moon base. We have Mars base. We've been doing time travel and transporter for quite a while now. And these guys were about to blow the whistle, so they got off. That's what he's basically saying. And the same thing when Onizuka got killed. It's so obvious. Onizuka was one of the people that was rescuing with Mark Richards, the Dulce hostages. Carter sent in rescuers. So Onizuka, hero from Hawaii, was also killed in one of these fakey accidents that they arranged. And no, they don't need to have these gigantic, heavy, fuel-burning stuff. That's just the Only Books budget. They have a black budget that's way more. We have a clandestine military, and we do have there's huge ships there knocking out, zapping debris that's incoming right now, and there are things coming in right now. And the Linkage Institute, they talk a lot about how they were going to deal with solar flares and big problems with the sun, and I think they've got a staff and using this time dilution phenomenon to get us past, so that we, when Nibiru and its associated objects come through, we would be at apogee, as far from the area as possible when Nibiru was at perigee, to the closest Solaris.
And one of the things that Sean was talking about on his video, which I hope he shows up and we can talk to him about, was there's something wrong with the sun. And we have a colleague, Robert Evans Jr., and he said that there are large ships around the sun, and Sean David Morton was confirming that, and apparently there's something going on with the sun. They're trying to correct that. They're trying to correct the wobbles in the orbit so we don't do a major pole shift. So that's one of the things that's happening there. Can you just talk about this?
Sure. So one of the, in terms of what's really happening between us and the extraterrestrials that are interested in us, is that this Marduk and his camp, who have been They were using Wes Penra as sort of their press secretary.
Go ahead, keep talking. I'm sorry. Can you hear us, Sean?
Yes, you're back.
Can you hear us? Okay. Okay, you can hear us. Thanks.
Yeah, you're live.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry.
Is this Sean David on right now?
No, it's just Sean Bell. We haven't found Sean David Horton yet.
So that what happened is the higher authorities in the Federation, as part of the galaxy, who are repeatedly intervened to save humanity. They're called the Gods. They're the ones that told Andrew to do scientists with the Anunnaki because Noah has approved of a computer program, and it will also continue that tell them how to build
Sasha, can you please speak into the microphone? I can't understand what you're saying.
Typically, you tell Abraham program, Sarah, because Abraham was the chosen one, the seed of Abraham was going to be a special branded.
Sasha, you may need to adjust your microphone. You're coming through extremely low.
No, you can't hear Sasha. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. Okay, is it working now? Can you hear us? Okay. Trying to figure out, it says that we're using the mic here, so sorry about that. Go ahead and talk into the mic.
What was the last thing I was saying?
Sorry, I was trying to text stuff. I wasn't really paying attention. Start anywhere. Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay, so we were talking about the Anunnaki's role in our history, and so what we've been covering in our research with the various investigators and whistleblowers and experiencers, contactees, who's at the top of the pyramid, what is the ruling faction of our planet, and how has that been affecting the course of our history and the current secret space program, and what's going to happen in the future. So from your perspective, Dr. Lesson, and you've been reading, my beloved husband can read 3 or 4 or 5 books in a week. He's just a speed reader, and he can digest and have come to an understanding of all this vast volume of information that's coming to the forefront here and in this evolutionary process of humanity and all creation. It feels to me like there's a quickening, that things are accelerating at light speed, and that time is just moving incredibly fast, and that in the course of the day, we're covering a lot more information than we ever did before, because we're in an age of ever-increasing technology, but not only just technology, but consciousness and spiritual awakening. See, at least that's my reality, what's going on for me. So correlating all this information with all these people that are finding us, we're like the hub in a wheel. And we get calls all the time, we get emails, we're on Facebook, and Skype. People are contacting us from all over the planet because we're here on Revolution Radio and other shows. We're continually doing radio shows, and we've done a few television shows, and now we're about to go out this fall and do conferences. And it seems like the more we connect with the individual folks or pieces of the puzzle, the more that this acceleration process happens, and that we are waking up exponentially as a planetary species. That's what I'm perceiving any thoughts on that?
Well, basically, we're going toward two possibilities, in that being able to listen to a program like this puts you into the potential 3%, which A.R. Borden and others at the Lincoln Institute say could tip the scale so that we go into a higher level of functioning, a more peaceful, loving world, indeed, the age of Aquarius, rather than the doomsday scenario that has been playing out during Marduk's age, this Kali Yuga. But this is over now, and so the best information that we've gotten so far is that there was this huge competition between the infiltrating forces of Anu, of Menar, who would come to take over and get rid of Marduk's control of everything, and Marduk's forces, and they were assassinating each other, and so they spy, and so finally, Galzu, this higher council, came back and said, this is enough of this, we're not playing this game anymore, it's over, it's a new era, the way we've lined up in terms of where we are in the cosmos and with the center of the galaxy. It's now the dawning of the age of Aquarius. It's time for Enki. I know that's not your regular rule of succession, but we're ending the feud. Enki is a person who, through his mother, has come from, these guys are very into whose parentage and what your genetics are in such a way that it's a big deal to them. And I got to say that from my perspective, as a human being who respects himself, it doesn't matter what your parentage is. Everybody's got a light to shine, and that's the hierarchy. It doesn't matter. So if Marduk was saying, look, I'm going to bring to you the sanctified human, this person, and his name was the Supreme David Rockefeller, who's been controlling everything. It was really just Marduk, the way he was presenting himself. But he'd been working with the heads of government and so forth, and now he's relieved. Michael Lee Hill he was totally relieved, that guy, and he's reformed, and he's going to help us. Well, I think we don't need all their help if it means some form of slavery. Who needs? Don't need that. That's part of the problem, in my opinion.
Well, one of the things that about on his, and he might be coming on right now.
This is Science Officer Spock, and currently there are
recording. So anyway, I'm going to try to reach Karen Christine Patrick and her partner Bret Sheppard, as they have some new information on the Moon and Mars anomaly pictures and the information that's emerging from there. But we'll keep talking until we pull them on. So what was I going to say? We were talking about the change in the rulership going to the Aquarian age, and yes. Sean was talking and
how our thoughts can move us to either thoughts can either move us to the apocalypse or to just a more loving way of functioning, to ascendance.
Right, and we're looking at the new paradigm. What has happened once we move past this perverted matrix of reality where it's pyramid base, that there's the top of the heap that is the minority, that is a certain bloodline, is the royals, is the Illuminati, and they are the ones that are controlling the planet. They appear to be the Mardukian faction of the Anunnaki, Marduk being the eldest son of Enki, and that's quite confusing because we can see the good guy and Yahweh the bad guy, but they're like human beings. They're more complicated than that. They have bad qualities. They are human beings. We are they are we. We are their descendants. We are their children. And so we're looking at all these different things. And so one of the things I was listening to in Sean's conversation, first of all, he said that the age of Aquarius is like moving into an era, and it takes about 500 years to transition from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. So right now we are like adolescents in terms also the timetable transition, that when we finally go into the forest of Aquarius, we will be in. Okay, go ahead and talk.
Okay. So I should explain what this is about their succession. Back on Nibiru, a upstart prince named Alalu killed the king, pushed him off of a tower because he wasn't doing anything to save the planet. And the guy who should have succeeded that king, Anu, was about to do civil war, and the guy who threw the other king off, Alalu, said to Anu, look, let's make a deal. Your son can marry my daughter, and their child, their son, will be my successor, and then we won't have civil war. They shook on a deal. They went through with that. Okay, then after a while, Anu said, I've had it, and he overthrew Alalu, killed him. And then he said, now my son, who's the legal son with my queen, Enlil, will be my successor. And meanwhile, the kid of Enki, who was supposed to be king, was a guy named Marduk, and he got cheated out of his chance to be king. And he thought, look, Alalu's dead, now I'm supposed to be king. But no, Anu was king. So Marduk, through a series of brilliant military moves and aligning himself with the Earthlings, with us, the adapted workers, was able to win control of Earth after a thermonuclear war that destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and the spaceport in Sinai. Marduk was in charge of the Earth and has been pretty much so, and then the forces of Nanar started infiltrating and fighting against him, and there's been this war within the hidden apex of the pyramids of control on Earth, and now it's over. They've decided that they're going to work together, and Marduk says he is relieved, he's redeemed, and he's he's very complex, but he's part of a soul that is Marduk and is bigger than Marduk too, that's come to save us all. But the whole problem, I'm a social anthropologist, is hierarchy. You don't have governance to get things done. You don't have to have government institutions. It's the institutions that go through time as though they're persons. Corporations are like that, and offices are like that. They go through time. The king is dead, long live the king. That's the problem. It's the institutions, instead of having commissions, specific jobs that you do, and ad hoc committees that deal with things on an expertise basis. You don't need to have these nation states and religions have been pitted against each other on purpose. Today I did a piece on the Tower of Babel, which was really a launch tower that Marduk had made right next to his dad's place in Iraq. He was going to make his own spaceport, and Commander Enlil, Yahweh is what people call him down here, said no way, and sent his son, the enforcer, in the Nerda, and they bombed this tower and killed a lot of Marduk's Earthlings. And of course, that in the Bible, it becomes he was making a tower to reach up to the Lord because his name was going to be bigger. Shem, the Shem means rocket ship in ancient Sumerian. It was for rockets. Anyway, so Marduk had a setback in the so-called Tower of Babel. After that, Enlil decided, listen, there's millions of these humans, Earthlings, and there's only about 900 of us at the very most. Let's keep them pitted against each other and make sure they have different languages. If what they write won't be legible from place to place, different religions, and then within each group, let's really program them so that they'll be so distracted. And then, of course, Nanar was the genius. Let's use debt. Let's use trade.
Right. So let me just slow that down a bit because some of you need to talk about this. So the babbling process, right, that always tells me, like, let's confuse their language. And so I'm not sure exactly what happened. If people were talking a common language, maybe did they disperse them around the planet?
Yes, that's right. It's extremely easy when you isolate populations the languages just start diverging. And so that in English we have this Germanic grammar, and then when William the Conqueror and the French came overlaid by French, which is a Latinic language. But you can, but a philologist, someone who studies this, has been able to go back to the original kind of pre-Sumerian language that the Anunnaki must have spoken. And a lot of experiencers have directly heard that language through its Swerbo for one.
Right, and beyond language, it seems that the Anunnaki and other extraterrestrial species are telepathic. So I have had telepathic communications as an experiencer with many different extraterrestrials. And we move past language, which slows us down. It's in a way when we're speaking using language at any time, we have to take our thoughts and slow them down and put them into a translator within the parts of our mind, and then come out into words. And so with telepathy, you're not speaking for one thing, you're communicating in total concepts. So when you're talking telepathically, communicating. See how language is? It's so, language is a program, and it pulls you into a certain direction of sub-parsing from the total concept. So when you're communicating telepathically, you get entire paragraphs or even volumes, even books. You get these concepts, and the speed of communicating information is at a much higher rate than, typing on a computer and using your mind to put it into a language. The language is a program that babbles the mind, that babbles humanity and keeps us from greater awareness, from accelerating our learning capacity, from evolving into a higher species.
Well, the alternative to languaging is to directly apprehend, to just directly experience, and that can be, of course, it can be in terms of getting mental pictures, but it's also, if you open yourself up, you can directly experience your experiences, and the language becomes a secondary label that you put on the experience later, but it doesn't have to interfere. And of course, that's what meditation does. It allows you, I get rid of your languaging or intellectual capacity. You just want to not let it interfere with your ability to take in larger kinds of consciousness.
Okay, our producer is saying that we have a caller, and it might be Sean Bell. So, Sean David Morton. So, Sean Bell, would you like to put the caller on, and we'll see if this is Sean David Morton. Hello, caller, are you there? All right, I will wait until our producer says that he has the caller and he can put them on the air. So we're back to our... Okay. I was talking about the babbling in the language, and then what was the next thing
Well, one of the interesting things is people give these great big fear scenarios. What would happen when there's going to be big time disclosure? Well, everybody knows. For heaven's sakes, there's saucers. Everybody's seen, and lots of people have had contact with ETs. They're among us. Most ordinary people don't believe this government nonsense and Fox News stuff like that. And if they bother to deny it and laugh at it, that means it exists for them because they're thinking about it. And so,
Well, we suffer from pluralistic ignorance. And explain what pluralistic ignorance is.
Well, that means when everybody knows but you pretend you don't know. It's like oh no, I wouldn't do that. Whatever, I wouldn't masturbate, but yet everybody does it. At least when they're teenagers.
Right, and it's like the story of the emperor's new clothes. That everybody was too afraid to say, "Oh, the emperor really doesn't have clothes on," and so they all bought into the lie because they didn't want to in that situation, they'd be able to be killed by the emperor.
And so where the really heavy pluralistic ignorance is that we know that 9/11 was a set-up deal. Those people were murdered so they could send our kids over to murder Iraqis. We know that these wars are manufactured and millions of people starve to death and are tortured and horrible things happen. We all know it, and we're all pretending that we don't. We're pretending it doesn't affect us, but we've got to rise above this.
Right. Okay, we have a caller. Go ahead, Sean, and put the caller on, and let's see if it's Sean David Morton or someone else. Okay, don't know how we're going to do this. So, we suffer from pluralistic ignorance. We have overwhelming information, and yet there's still a giggle factor that denies our reality. We have a self-policing society. We're shamed by our perceived judgments from other people. We go through life valuing what other people say and think about us more than our own thoughts about ourselves, and we allow ourselves to be censored. Okay, caller, this is Janet and Sasha. Caller, what is your name, please? I'm not hearing the caller. Can you hear us? Okay, that's not working, so we'll continue. Okay, you hear me. I can't hear the caller. Does the caller have a question? Maybe, Sean, you can type it into our... Anyway, continue. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm not sure what Sean's trying to convey to us. Okay, so back to... What would you like to do about this information? I think what we're moving to is an alternative way of being. So let's say we have disclosure tomorrow. What would that look like? One of the things that people have been discussing on the internet and all these chats and shows is that the Stuart Squirtle and other people brought to the forefront is that we may have what's called a false flag event. And looking at the historical Jesus, was the whole Jesus story a myth, or was it reality? And if it was a reality, who was Jesus? Was Jesus a human being? Was he an extraterrestrial? Was he Yankee? Was he God? Was he the movie? You know, what was the story there? How many times was this Messiah concept introduced onto the earth plane? What was the meaning of the Messiah? They're supposed to be using the return of Messiah. Earlier on, Sasha was talking about the being rescued by somebody from somewhere else, be it the extraterrestrials and Jesus or Buddha, or somebody's going to come back and save us. And ultimately, what I'm coming to is there's no one out there to save us, that we are the co-creator of this entire existence. And when we realize that we are the co-creators of this existence and the power ourselves, that's when we'll realize the Emperor has no clothes and that the Wizard of Oz is behind the curtain.
So when we've talked to these various contactees and people that have meet with the extraterrestrials and stuff, they say that it was the main things that Earth needs to do to have a peace with these extraterrestrials and more active help with the technology is stop nuclear testing and polluting, and stop making war, have a unified, peaceful planet. And that's what they're saying. That it's time for us to develop and not to spoil the place with pollution and so forth. And it's so obvious that the banking, economic, selling opium system that the illicit government, the covert government carries on, this supports our clandestine ET, Earth. Admiralty fleet, we have bases on Mars, we have and on the Moon. The evidence is overwhelming once you start getting into it, and you might giggle because you're uncomfortable with it, but it's what it is. But anyway, what is it that you got to do to be spiritual? In very simple terms, they say, care a little bit, give a little bit more than you take. Give a little bit more than you take. Don't give so much that you get pissed at the person you're giving to, but give a little bit more than you take. And then AR4, and these guys say you get 3% of the population living for service and loving other people in this way, giving a little bit more than they take.
Well, that's supposed to be what's behind this spiritual evolution of our own individual consciousness, is that when we go into service to others, even if it's 51% service to others and 49% service to ourselves, that we will ascend to become conscious. But we can do that even better. When you get to the point where giving and receiving are the same, where it feels just as good to give as it does to receive. And if you think about it, when you're giving a gift to someone and you see them being happy, aren't you happy? I mean, this would always have to be about receiving, and that's when you're a balanced individual. You balance your inner giver and your inner receiver. And so many people, for many years, Dr. Lesson and I've had a private psychological counseling, what do we call it? It's not a program, it's a business, it was a business, it was a service, to humanity. And we were in service to others doing this counseling. We still do counseling in different ways, but over the years, part of the problem is that people are givers. And they just give and give and give and give until they deplete themselves. And then they're resentful to the person they're giving to. So the key is to balance your giver and taker so that you don't give more than you receive, or at least if you do give, you give with a good heart instead of being resentful later or exhausted. And that means you've got to balance your own energy so you're not over-giving. So if you're going to take this to a structural level, it's called topological thinking. The idea is to embrace the opposites, and so it's not a matter of giving or taking. If you really look at it, you're forming a coherent field with the person that you're into a reciprocal interaction with, so that you are giving and taking obliterates. If you think of yourself as giving a little bit more and obliterating the boundary between you and the other person, then it becomes they are like you, they are included in your sense of self, and that's how you transcend that level of consciousness. And so this is the whole way that A.R. Borden and others have conceived this. They call it topological thinking. Every time that you embrace the opposites within you, you become more tolerant of the manifestation of those opposites outside of you, and you are no longer bound to that level of existence, but get a broader perspective. And when you do that enough, ultimately you merge with divine consciousness, with the metacosmic void, in the sense of Leela, or playfulness, that gives you all the dichotomies, but you never lose this sense that you can transcend the dichotomies and still have them. That's topological thinking. You can go above the separations. You can rise above the material, but not lose the separations when you need them, the distinctions, or not lose the material. I was looking at an article, I pulled it up here, that NASA scientists, we live inside a hologram generated by alien computers. And so we've been looking at the concept of the holographic universe. And what this basically is asking, is our world an elaborate cosmic illusion? And so let's just say that this is a projection of one upon the other and a hologram that ultimately we at the top of this, and once again it kind of goes... It's a hologram, right? Once you say we're a hologram. It's about... And what he's saying is the universe behaves just like it's part of a simulation. It only exhibits certain characteristics when observed, similar to the way the Grand Theft Auto game then only generates the area that the current player is currently in. I haven't played that game. So it requires to have a participant in order to react. And so that's why scientists are saying that the universe only moves when it's observed. Or is it like Schrodinger's cat? Is the cat dead or alive? What part does the observer participant have in the generating of the reality and the concept? So this is one thing that we've been talking about. I'm not the most eloquent speaker in this whole thing, if you want to put in your 2 cents of what you think it is. But we're looking at how to empower ourselves, because when we're down here in our little self, in our mini-me's, in the, this whole paradigm of creation, we have a tendency to show up victim and externalize things and say, where's our savior, where's our rescuer, and we need somebody that's smarter and better and brighter and older and to solve things for us, where ultimately we move into this topological thinking, which is top of logic thinking, where we're accessing the morphogenic field and the quantum level of thought, and then we can find the solutions outside of this huge problem, which is ultimately killing humanity and destroying much of our beautiful Earth. And so, but even that is kind of like limited, and so we need to up-level that, get past this paradigm that there are those that are creating, the problems in the first place that are outside of ourselves. It's a dichotomy on top of dichotomy. Go ahead, Sasha.
So one of the big things that they've been talking about at the Linkage Institute, recently Michael Sala has been interviewing Corey Good about blue avians who have decided to come in and give us a big-time assistance. And basically, Corey Good relates in a situation where actually Henry Kissinger is at this meeting with the extraterrestrials. They've been having these series of meetings, and Marduk's people that have been in charge said, look, we Dracos who are left here on the planet, we realize we don't have the wherewithal. Now you've got the weaponry to blast us out, and so we're going to call off our invasion of this part of the galaxy right now. We would like permission to leave the and Marduk has the area up to 400. He's got terrible weapons, and so they want to be able to leave without getting shot down, and they also want to be able to have no punishment against Bush and Cheney and Rumsford and Lee and these people that have been running things and killing all these people and getting all these people killed down here. And so the Good and Gonzalez, the American Earth representatives, and Kissinger seem to be saying, that's okay. You could probably leave, but we don't know how we're going to be able to handle. We have to work on how we're going to handle letting all these mass murderers go when there are people that really want vengeance. And so that's where the discussions seem to be going, and what Saul's been reporting.
Right, and this whole thing about the blue avians, if you've been following this on the internet, has created a huge debate and conversation. And this is where it seems that the UFO, exopolitics, extraterrestrial community goes to is who's got the truth, who's got the information, who's got the disinformation. And it seems like we're missing the whole point, which is there are species that are in support of humanity, and there are species that apparently have their agenda in what they want to do with humanity and have been controlling us all along. Are they strictly Anunnaki? Has this planet been visited since it's been created? And the species that are here have been introduced? Have we had we call it intervention? Has intervention been going on the entire time with terraforming and periods in time where other species have been introduced, and eventually we came into a humanoid, hominoid type species which could hold sentient life, which was also further manipulated by hybridization, by many different species. Carrie Cassidy was reporting that her research shows that there's 21 different species, but even that, she says, we don't really know how many species have been hybridizing, putting their genes into our, what do you call that, what's the word, creating a hybrid of us with themselves in order to what? What is this grand purpose and the end result. What are they looking for? Well, one of the theories that we've been talking about is that they desire to create a species that can basically hold heaven and earth in one container. So the human form is capable of traveling through the universe and addressing God, mind, source, the creator of all, just by its own mind, and does not have to die in order to go to this state of consciousness. And a lot of times human beings, in order to achieve this state of consciousness, higher level of consciousness and awareness of God, mind, source, I'm not talking about the little gods that created religions and have been controlling humanity, but the God, mind, source, creator of all, which is actually us, oneness, at the top of the vibratory frequencies. So human beings are designed to be able to do that, and that is apparently one of the reasons why some other species are in a way envious or jealous of humanity, is that they are incapable of doing that. And even human beings, there are some that are like gurus, and so those who are meditators and able to access that level of, the adepts that can do that, and some need to take things like entheogens or go into deep meditative state or use tantra, do a combination of these things in order to use that dimension or that energy where they connect with God, mind, source. And one final word I'll give back to Dr. Lesson. Thought, Mingashita, the son of Enki, when he was here just, learning about humanity that he had co-created and dealing with the earth and studying it, he encountered the Galzu, the beings that are in the halls of Amenti. Excuse me. And those beings, the halls of Amenti is an interdimensional portal that goes from third-dimensional physicality in Earth to the higher realms. It's like the Stargate. It's the singularity within the Earth, and there are beings that watch the halls of Amenti that are in every sphere, apparently, and they are observing the evolution of species and consciousness on third-dimensional spheres of and bodies. I guess it's also in the astral as well. So he found them, and they invited him to be an acolyte and studied with them. And so he studied with them, and we're not sure how much time passed, but eventually he learned to move into his molecular form and travel in cosmos and visit planets and everything, other dimensions of existence, in a state that human beings apparently can do naturally. So, and then when he came back from his travels through the universe, the Galzu beings invited him to, they said, you are now one of us, and they said, what will you do? What is your work? And he thought for a moment, and he came back and said, I'm here to help humanity evolve and become conscious enlightened as well. And apparently, on the other hand, though, someone has dummied down us genetically and turned off 256 strands of DNA, so we don't have all of our full capabilities to do these things that are more natural to us than other species. And so we've been investigating that to see what has happened. And so that led us to the different factions of the Anunnaki. And when you look at the Anunnaki story, you'll also look at the interdimensionals that apparently have the ability to come through interdimensionally and possess other beings. And that takes us to David Icke information and the draconians that are interdimensional draconians apparently can move in third-dimensional form and shapeshift. But apparently there also is a species of reptilians related to the breakup that is indigenous to the Earth, and during the Iru has gone inside the Earth. And then that leads us to the story that I personally experienced, which was I was taking to see the dragon. I call it the dragon of in the blank.
Okay. The Dracos, you're seeing one of the periodic moving throughs of either Nibiru or the Lagrange debris, which is, say, 180 degrees from Nibiru in its orbital path. In any case, they were escaping from a catastrophic extinction level event that was they would be exposed to on the surface, and they had these tunneling machines, and they found vast caverns underneath several places underneath the mountains of Tibet, underneath Antarctica, which was in a different place at the time, and so forth. And so they settled there. And when the Nazis learned of this, they had an alliance through the Thule and the Vrils with the Tibetans, and the Dalai Lama was particularly the person that they worked through in Tibet. In any case, the Nazis brought back and fostered an alliance between the Dracos, who were under Tibet, and the Nazis, and Hitler had got the plans from the Vril Society, the people that they brought over, on how to make the anti-gravity craft. And the Germans made several of them. They weaponized them and so forth, and they moved some of them toward the end of the war down to their base under Antarctica. It was called New Schwabenland and New Berlin. And they took I think it was something like 200,000 blonde Ukrainian beautiful women and 2,000. So there was like not nearly as many SS troopers, and they had a huge series of cities down there. It's a great big space underneath the ice. There's a cave that you got through. And in 1947, they had a big basin at the bottom of Argentina, too. And so the Nazi brass started escaping, and the SS was all brought down there, and Hitler himself came down to Antarctica. Everything that you saw about Hitler after that was just his various doubles that he left back in Berlin. And so in 1947, after Berlin had fell, the United States sent a full-on expedition, Admiral Byrd, together with the Pine Island, a seaplane tender, and a contingent of Marines. And the Brits had tried to blow up the entrance to the underground base in Antarctica, but they had been wiped out, a couple of attacks. And so the U.S. command sent Byrd with this flotilla and lots of supply, ready to have this 8 months war. And much to their shock, instead of just dealing with Nazi planes or submarines, out came these anti-grav crafts, the flying discs, and sunk the Pine Island, killed 64 Marines. Byrd just barely escaped, and when he started to blab about what was coming down, they had him committed as crazy and stuff. But fortunately, and the Joint Chiefs were, oh man, we've had it. We can't. These things are so maneuverable and so fast. We're at their mercy. Fortunately, however, we had made contact with the extraterrestrials from Serpo, who had deliberately given us a craft and helped us develop our own anti-grav craft, and left us with an ambassador while we sent 12 Americans to Serpo. And so then the Germans became fully aware that we had our own anti-grav craft too. But then it didn't matter because the Nazis took over by Operation Paperclip. They were brought over so that they took over the mind control and the space program and the military program, and the CIA. Alan Dulles was the Nazi supervisor. And basically, they are in control now. The Nazis are in control now. They are a big part of the Illuminati that run the world. Yeah, your turn.
Right. So we've been doing this research, tracking it down with our own study and investigation on books and websites, and talking to all these whistleblowers, and everybody just kind of piecing this together and looking at this grand picture And some people say, well, so what? We've been visited by all these different species, and everybody's involved with the planet. You know, why is the focus on the Anunnaki? But the Anunnaki are the latest influx in the genetic manipulation. And so Neil Freer says the reason why we want to focus on the Anunnaki is because they are the ones that are in control of the planet, and plus we are their closest genetic relatives, and we are their children. So if we can unlock this and, you know, basically get to the point where they will sit down and have, you know, tea with us, so to speak. They will talk to us, and that's what the A.R. Borden Linkage Institute is reporting, that A.R. Borden, who is an Anunnaki. Okay, so we're going to go to break now and see if we can get our guests on for the second hour in just a second here. We just got a message from Bret. Okay, so we're back in.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message. Time, and it's coming. It's called Hawksfest. Hawksfest 2015. Actually, that was not my choice, but everybody outruled me. I wanted to call it Freedom Fest or something, but yeah, they just said, let's just call it Hawksfest. But, you know, it is what it is. See what I'm saying? Anyway, but be here the first weekend of September at my farm. There's going to be fun. There's going to be food. There's going to be a live concert, including a 20-year reunion of my Black Sabbath tribute. And you can watch this old rocker try to look cool again. Not. But let's do it anyway. Lots of space for camping, and if you don't want to camp, we have a nice motel in town called the Hampton Inn. Make reservations now. Lebanon, Kentucky, Hampton Inn. Go look it up. Find it. I have some non-electric space for RVs, to pull your RVs if you want to bring RVs in. That's fine. We have the space for that. But listen, I really hope you come, as it's the station's celebration for the station's family, which is everyone in the sound of my voice. And we want to try to do this every year. Destination Human and myself and several others have spent months preparing the farm to make this a pleasant, informative, fun, and humans just sharing humans, experiencing humans event, trying to make this the best event possible. And we have nothing to sell, no agendas, just people converging with other people and having a lot of fun. So I hope to see you there. Go to the homepage, www.freedomslips.com, scroll down to the middle, and you will see a very simple link that says Hawksfest 2015. Thank you. I hope to see you there.
Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern on Studio A to hear Tammy Adams share her knowledge of an unknown realm on Talking with Your Angels. Join Tammy as she uncovers hidden secrets about the spiritual world of angels, ghosts, and other entities that have been with us longer than we know. Tammy is a psychic, a teacher, spiritual coach, a leader in her field, and will be sharing her information and stories with you. So join us on Tuesdays at noon on Studio A. With Tammy's guidance, you'll find out who has been watching over you from the other side, and soon you will be talking with your angels.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha, and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm your host, Janet Lesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson, and we are going to be joined this second half of the show by Bret Sheppard and Karen Christine Patrick, who are Moon and Mars anomaly researchers. So we're going to be talking about what's going on in the Moon and Mars. So before we get to this, to our new guest in the second half of our show, I'd like to remind everybody that Revolution Radio is listener supported. So please do go over to that donation button and donate what you can. $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you can donate is greatly appreciated. $100 would be great. And we do appreciate your donation because your donations allow Revolution Radio and the good people here to bring you shows like our show, The Sacred Matrix, and all the other fabulous shows that are on Revolution Radio. So thank you once again for your donation. And before we go back on our show, Dr. Lesson, what would you like to say? Anything? Like, make sure we have our guests.
Okay. This has been really interesting. I was just thinking, we're ad-libbing since Sean David didn't come. And so I was just thinking about what would I do if we didn't have anybody. And I was just thinking about this story of Inanna. And so if you want me to wrap it up.
Well, no, they're here. Okay, so Karen and Bret, are you with us?
Hi, I'm here. Karen's looking for your number.
Oh, no, we call you, so you're on live right now.
Oh,
our
okay.
producer calls you, so no, she won't be calling into a number. Just, get her to come on over, and we will do the second half of our show.
Okay, cool.
So welcome, Bret Sheppard. Comes Sean, just came online. I think we'll reschedule Sean because, now we have one. Right? We can have Sean. I guess we can have Sean come on as well. If Sean Bell, if you'd like to try to bring in Sean David Morton, we could have a party here. That would be great, the party line. But bring over Karen as well. So while we're doing that, Bret, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your research?
Sure. I'm the founder of the Lunar Anomaly Research Society on Facebook, and I have been doing lunar research for a very long time. Since apparently since 1982, unknowingly. I started doing very serious research about probably 4 years ago, and it's been quite interesting. I had a very different perspective, and also a very unique perception of our lunar images. So I basically dug into some of those. At first, I was kind of getting into the Mars images and whatnot with a friend of ours. Her name is Helena Blomfeld, and she runs another older Mars anomaly group, and she was very inspirational in that regard. I had no idea that it was actually possible to find things on in the lunar images, and that was very intriguing to me because I like to fish anyway, and so. It's just basically fishing with rocks, But what happened was that I started seeing imagery within the lunar images and the different space images, and it was triggered by a lady last named Evans, that came into my group, and she gave me a very large Mars strip to look at. And on this strip, it was quite a famous strip. Courtney Brown and others from the Farsight Institute had done some remote sensing of this area, and it's also the area that J.P. Skipper noticed with the water spouts and such, you know. Well, I flipped the image, you know, on its side or whatever, and I started seeing exactly what I saw in 1982, which was kind of intriguing because the image wasn't taken until 1998, and it wasn't released until 2001.
So how did you? What's this image you saw in '98, and how did you see it?
When I saw it in 1982, I saw sort of like a Roman-esque type of soldier laying on the ground with his arm stretched out, and a lady was sitting in his hand. And that's how I saw it back then in 1982. And when I looked at what they had out from 2001, I saw a lot more out of the image, because I guess it was I'm not sure if it was just a clearer picture of it, because the one I saw was very fuzzy, you know. And it was the same exact area and the same exact image and same exact lighting and everything. And I looked down on there, and it looked like a little civilization, an old ancient civilization in ruins, you know. I also saw reptilian beings with elongated skulls that were climbing up hills and stepping over other ones that didn't quite look alive. And very, very clear, vivid imagery. And I was and that sort of started things for me. I started looking at all of the space images, especially the lunar images and early lunar orbiter images, because I got the kind of the impression that some of the newer ones were mostly CGI and just complete utter fantasy or whatever that they would put out to the public.
What's CGI mean?
Computer-generated graphics, yeah.
Yeah. If it was no stars or no Earth in the background, just black background, I knew it was fakey.
Yes. Would you like me to tell you how they do that? I know how they do that.
Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Well, the original image had lots of dust and actually stars in the backgrounds of these images, like their lunar lander images and everything. There really are stars in the original images. I've seen them. And what they've done is they would decrease the resolution by more than half in steps. And that would basically, what that would do is make everything blurry and fuzzy, so that would get rid of the detail. And then they would lower the brightness and up the contrast, and that would make it almost black in the background. But there would still be a few bright stars or whatever, and they would literally paint those out by hand.
Wow. And so why were they doing that? Why were they taking up...
They said that they were doing that to confuse people. I know otherwise. There are UFOs. There are all kinds of things floating around in the background.
You bet.
You know, so that's exactly why they did it.
What about this, that we didn't get to the moon? So you're saying, I mean, quick look at Serve, we've been going to the moon since the Anunnaki. But what's going on? I know you're in touch with an astronaut, and I won't mention his name until he's been on the show. Or I guess we can if you want to, but...
Sure. I've been working with Dr. Ken Johnston.
And what's he going to bring?
Definitely has a unique perspective, you know, because he was the one that actually signed off on most of these Apollo images. And he trained most of the Apollo astronauts and has probably more hours than they did in the LEM vehicle, you know, that they used to go on the moon. And so he's got like 3,000 hours. He's a trained pilot, and he'll tell you all that later. But he basically is working with me on an archive, you know. And I'm seeing these images for the first time in my life. I've seen every one of them that they put out to the public, and they're all tampered with.
Oh.
Every single one of them.
And what do you get access to these for these archives?
Yes, I'll let him tell his story out of human experience and respect, but basically him and another person that I was working with, I can't mention their name, gave me an image, you know, that had a background in it, because I asked if there was any control images, because I know for a fact, I'm a digital artist, that these images are fake in the background, you know. And so you know, I saw a few of these, some of the key images, you know, and that's exactly what they did. They lowered the resolution, and they actually darkened the background with brightness, and that's why the blacks are really black and the white spots are really white, because it's really high contrast. So that gets rid of, you know, most of the stuff that they're trying to hide, you know, and the other things are literally airbrushed out or they're painted out. So some things are like UFOs that are sketching across the surface, and they're flying. You can see them flying. You know, it's quite obvious. and comparing like that image that I was privileged enough to see, and everyone will be soon. You know.
What craft did you see? What were they shaped like?
Gosh, they were really neat looking. There's one that's like white, and it's sort of cone shaped, and it has these like two what looks like afterburners on the side, or like arms or something. Really strange, you know. But one of them looks like a flying piece of cauliflower. You know.
And it's moving across the way an airplane would. You just showing. Are they moving in a coordinated direction? These different.
No, they look like they kind of look like they're doing a very controlled float, sort of. You know. It's very interesting. It's interesting how they move. I've never seen one like that one. You know, I've seen them 10 feet away, down Highway 10, going down through the South in America, and one actually followed right in front of my van, you know, for a very long distance.
Have you been brought on board?
Probably.
Do you remember anything about being on board, or having a dream about being on board?
I remember everything, you know, and I actually drew a picture of it, you know. It's the being was semi-Nordic, looked like a hybrid. Very platinum kind of looking hair. One of them had blue eyes, one of them had green eyes, you know. And there was they wore like Star Trek type of clothes, but they didn't look like clothes. They looked almost like they were part of their skin. And they had holographic monitors, you know. It seemed like they would just like touch things in the air and around their table and whatnot. And there was a hologram that came up or whatever, and it showed their ship. It was really weird. And it was the exact same ship that I saw flying when I was in the van. It's a very strange little time warpy thing, you know. I was like, what just happened?
Okay, and they've chosen you. What mission do they have for you? What do they want you to do?
To stick to a timeline. They've been visiting me since I was a very little small child. I actually thought it was a dream when I was a kid, because they were telling me that that's not real and that's imaginary friends and all that. And it isn't anything like you guys have ever heard, really. It wasn't Grays. It wasn't some kind of fantasy thing or whatever. It was very vivid and very real, and could have been like some kind of quantum holodeck thing, but I doubt it, because it was just too weird. The
Did you have
initial
the
initial meeting was
the same visitors, or were they different?
The older being was a woman. She was a female, and she had the very long white garment on with very shiny, looked almost like holographic shiny metal, but it was blue, and it was like shimmery, and it was very strange. And it seemed like when she moved her hand across it part of it disappeared, and they told me that you can just think about something and it'll be there, like on the way to the moon, I was in this like clearish ship where it didn't really have any walls. It was kind of like it started out having walls or whatever, but when it got up in space, it didn't have anything. You could just see everything around you, and it was like a glass bottom.
Wow, transparent all around.
Yeah, it was like totally crazy. I thought I was dreaming. And she said, just have a seat. I said, there's nowhere to sit. It's space. It was kind of like that, and I said that in my mind, And she said, just sit down, and so I sat, just doing what I was told or whatever, and there was something there, but there wasn't. You know what I mean? It was like
that's
really
the message. So that's the message that your thought creates the assemblage, something like that.
That's what
right.
Other people have reported, that we have in our mind that we need to have a ship to travel in, because it's not really necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So ship is the artificial construct that's created for your convenience for the moment, because you are in a human form and you think you're human, you think you need it. And I've had that experience as well. But once you break through and you realize you don't need a ship, then you can just travel through space.
One thing I learned is that they communicate with what the military would call civilians or whatnot. They communicate with them during an out-of-body experience so that the Sentinels can't listen in. They can't hear you.
Oh, that explains a lot. Uh-huh.
Does that explain something? Yeah.
So like the Sentinels.
Yeah, there's a Sentinel program that the secret military works on under, and Ingo Swann was part of that Sentinel program. They worked with the military doing the remote sensing and whatnot. Well, they got really good at it, but I've seen these guys in my thoughts, while I'm sleeping or dreaming or meditating, and they are just like guys, that you would see in the military, They're like, look at this guy, what is he doing, and stuff like that. They're very matter of fact, like militant. And I'm not sure exactly if they would even understand what they were looking at if they could hear that. You know what I mean? Because it's just too strange. It's very silly sometimes. The ETs are very exaggerated at times. They're like how you would view a stage person, that was exaggerating movements on a stage. But what they're saying is highly intelligent, and when you wake up, you've downloaded all of this information without really realizing it. And they're like clues, and like you go to the internet and look something up, and suddenly we're like beyond Sumeria, We're looking at different aspects of the actual ancient Pelagian Empire.
Okay.
And the actual ancient Greek Empire, like Troy and all that.
You've been tapped, what I'm getting is to communicate with the world, to communicate a lot of information. It's really apparent. And Bob Dean showed me some films that he got from Sony before they, from a Russian cosmonaut before they sent them back to the United States, and it showed this huge conveyor belt with trucks at the top and going down to what we would call strip mining. And I just wonder if you had any, if you saw any big pit mining or anything like that on the moon.
Oh yeah, especially in Copernicus crater. It's all done on. A lot of it is done on the near side of the moon, and there are co-op operations on the far side. And a lot of how you notice how they keep saying the far side. There's a base on the far side.
Yeah.
They don't want people to know that there's stuff on our side. There's giant parabolic dishes and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen these things in our images, that weren't public. You know what I mean?
There are too big to hide.
There are, something that I'm really happy to tell you guys is that there are ancient ruins on our side of the moon. Yes.
There are. What do you see? What are the ruins of? Are there statues?
There's it looks like an effigy of a big giant head, and there's ruins of there's like a pentacle-shaped wall.
Is this in the plain of Syngonia?
No, we're talking about moon.
Oh, the moon.
Yeah, it's like a pentagonal-shaped wall, and it's a real crunchy looking, like it's a ruined wall, all the way around, and on the other side of the this half of the pentagonal, there's very clear, solid cut blocks that could never have been just natural. No way.
Are these huge?
They're huge. They're fairly huge.
Have these images released yet, or are you going to be releasing them?
Yes.
And so where can we see these?
Yeah, I really don't think that it's a big deal. Because, people know these things already.
I want to see how the stones articulate, because I've been studying the stones of Ollantaytambo Tambo and Baalbek and places like that. I'm really curious how the stones fit together. I wonder if are you anywhere near resolution so I can see how the stones
a little bit. It's kind of fuzzy, but you can see how they fit. Yeah.
Well, we have stories in the Sumerian tales about the Anunnaki where
Nanar used to hang out there.
Nanar went to the moon, Enki and his son Marduk and others would go to the moon. These ancient ruins could be part of the extended Anunnaki Sumerian.
There's no doubt in my mind that that's one of the pit stops. No doubt in my mind. We've come from space.
Yeah, the other thing that's really interesting, some of the people we interviewed just recently said that, before Kukulkan, whose talk left, the Mayans had developed their own spacefaring society, and that really makes sense, because if you look at the sarcophagus of a guy inside of a tikal, you can see they now still, according to linkage people, some of them, that they really have Mayans in space now. Did you hear that?
Yes, absolutely. There is a very large ancient craft, on the moon, and I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's just west of Tchaikovsky crater. I don't remember the name of the little crater. Starts with a D. And it's sort of a grouping of a couple of craters, and then right above that, there's a very large ancient ship that looks like it's just been ruined there. or stranded there. And alongside that elongated cigar-shaped ship, there's a triangular-shaped ship, right? That's part of it on the side, and a lot of people don't know that, but that's where they apparently took out a being. And you guys have seen the fake videos and whatnot of the Mona Lisa and all this other jazz or whatever. Those are fake.
I wanted that. Oh, I think she's great.
But the story is real.
Huh?
The story is real.
Okay, so tell me what's fake.
The mock-up.
Yeah, it's sort of a reenactment because the people wanted the information out, but they did it in a reenactment format.
So, are you saying that isn't what she really looks like, or are you saying
not exactly, but they probably tried to make it look as close as they could.
As close as they could.
Yeah.
The story that if you follow it through, they say that she's not alive and not dead, that she's in some kind of suspended animation, and that they brought her back to Earth.
any of those details I really wouldn't know, but you kind of know how they put information out after a while, and you look at that, and because of what I know now, I know that there's truth in that story.
Yeah.
Because the Apollo, the latter Apollo missions were hidden. They became secret space programs.
And Sean David Morgan said that Grissom and these guys that were with him were murdered because they were about to blab on this PR deal and the clandestine space program that was already in place, and that's why they were murdered. Did you ever hear that too?
I think I've heard things like that. It's a lot of people are. I don't know if that's really happening. I don't know if they're being murdered for that reason, but more probably because they're trying to change something that the Department of Defense controls, or the OSI department, about our economic system or religion or something like that. I think they're hardcore set on destroying these things or whatever, and that is a very threatening thing to do, and it's irresponsible. You shouldn't just here there's everything you believed is false. Just walk through the tube and you'll be okay or something. You know what I mean? It's so traumatic. And we've lived our whole lives in a lie. But that doesn't mean that we should just go blah. Here it is. It's
we've got to face it now. The time has come to just.
And I hear that a lot. It is time. It's time to at least initiate disclosure, and disclosure has more to do with what's going on the ground than it does in space.
Yeah, and so much of it is pluralistic ignorance. If the people listening to this program and people in general would start telling the truth about their dreams and their visions and what they've seen and what they know in their heart, then you could just see they all know it's bullshit that the government lies. You can tell when a government official is lying by whether or not he or she is speaking.
Yeah, it's self-evident, and some people that benefit from it or whatever would never admit anything crazy like that. Because they benefit from the lie.
But even in the denial that they have to deny it, that they are acknowledging its reality.
Right, and those people
knows because of you and Karen, and others like you.
Yeah, those people are kind of fibbing, They're fooling themselves, and they're not doing anybody any good, by contributing to the lie of our history and the lie of our current events and false flag operations and pointing the finger at others, and all that. And that's what the whole plan was from the beginning. It was separation and separate the tribes to control them, And it's gone down to the
before
family.
You came on, a bit on the Tower of Babel and how that was a turning point when the rulers realized, hey, if they ever unite against us, we can't rule them anymore.
Yeah, it seems as though the Tower of Babel type of scenario, because they're all allegories, and they're allegories for different events that happened that didn't quite happen that way. There were many tribes in places where they didn't even discover yet, and they were trying to amalgamate, the fact that there's people that speak a different language in different places on the earth. So they came up with one analogy, which was just one little place, like we all came from there or something. And it's the same with the flood story. The whole world flooded, but they focus on the Black Sea area, which is cool, because that is where a lot of things happened. Many people were displaced, especially in the Danube River Valley, and they were forced to kind of get on the ocean and find land across the sea, and a lot of them landed in Turkey, in Cappadocia. And what's interesting about that is they went underground, and that doesn't make any sense during the flood. So there had to have been some kind of solar event as well.
Well, if you read what's that book, that Bible, the Colburn Bible, it talks about
yes,
there was a lot of debris falling down,
like volcanic
fire.
activity. Yeah.
They had to stay underground for protection.
Yeah.
So part of that story.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So your research is primarily on the moon, but you're starting to branch out to Mars. So what are some of the major things that you have found on the moon? Have you seen the pictures of that large ship that's about the size of New York City?
Yes, that's the one I was talking about, a big old cigar-shaped ship.
Right, yeah.
Size of New York City.
I saw it's supposed to be about the size of, and there apparently was a battle on the ship.
The size of Manhattan, I believe. Somebody measured it. But it's very large. You can actually see it, almost see it. You'd be able to see it through a telescope, but it's on the far side.
Right. And
so it really is that big.
There was a battle in that ship, and that they found pieces of humanoids that were kind of blown into bits, an arm here, leg there.
Yes, exactly. That's one of the stories, and I believe that there's a lot of truth in that story. I think the secret space program had an incident similar to that, and somebody wanted to tell people about it. They really want, most of the people that are in the military, they think it's time as well, because our economy's collapsing and they need to start the game over, So they think it's a great idea, let's get the cat out of the bag, so that we can start over, because otherwise we will never be able to build any kind of what even resembles trust again. Right? You see people walking around the airport and they're like space cadets. It's like, could you at least say hi? They're all on their phones. They're all minding their own business. They're all separated. What kind of world do we want to live in?
Anymore. It's a completely different world than when I was a kid. It was a big sin if you didn't acknowledge somebody walking by you or wave to your neighbors.
Oh, and now you say hi to people when you go by.
Yeah, now he's kind of like those 50s and 60s. You wave and say hi, and I think it's rude if you don't, but I know what you're talking about. You go to the airport or something, and everybody's just looking down at their cell phones, and nobody acknowledges.
Yeah, it's just kind of a weird look, unless it's about the children or something, Then it's like everybody's like, oh, I'll help. Everybody's helping now, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to look bad because it's kids. Otherwise, they wouldn't care less.
Well, what do you think? What else is going on the moon? Did the Nazis get there? The ancients?
That is a very, very interesting subject. You know, that basically the Nazis came over here on Project Paperclip, and we knew that they were working. Our military, knew at the time that they were working on technologies in Germany, and they were extremely interested in those technologies. So that was mostly what that was about, was to grab technologies, and they grabbed the scientists basically and took them to the United States, and they founded our space program. They were the founders of our space program. And especially Sheppard, he came over here. He was working on some of the more stranger things like anti-gravity and whatnot. And it was very primitive back then. It wasn't like, we've got it, Eureka, we've found it, and they shot off to the moon or something, or they shot off to Antarctica or whatever the stories are. I'm not sure if they reached anti-gravity per se, but I think they found some kind of balance or some kind of mediation, and there were real craft, that were functional, and they were able to transport people here and there. I'm not sure if they achieved that at that time, but after they came over to the United States, all of that technology came with them. And most of the UFOs that we saw in the 50s with Nordic beings coming out of the spacecraft were testing. They were testing real craft in Hanabu. They all look exactly the same, as these sightings that people say that especially like George Adamski. I call them all the Georges. There's a bunch of Georges, that have seen the Nordic being coming out, and they're Palladians, and it's like seeing Jesus for the first time or something, and then they get like Christian and religious with it, always. So you kind of see the agenda there, it's like, okay.
I got word that Karen is with us. Karen, are you there? Would you like to come into the show and add your 2 cents?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Yeah. Okay. What would you like to say? What would you like to contribute to this conversation?
Yeah, I've been listening. It's been awesome. Bret and I, we're just up to our chins in research. Yesterday he was saying, no, look, we have to stop at 5 o'clock. We have to stop. But we never do. But I do, because we're really putting a lot of dots together and stuff. We just have each of us we live together, and each of us brought different slices of the pie, so to speak, to try to sort through. And I want to double back on the Sentinel program, because I became aware of it last year by that name, because I do something called ENS, Extension Neural Sensing. It's kind of basically like remote viewing, but you just get your whole self in there, basically, to be at a place, wherever you want to look. And somebody mentioned, we were in a conversation, someone mentioned a base, a military base that they thought was strange. There was a conversation going on, and I just kind of went there. I just went there in my mind, and I found myself, kind of remote viewing a small room, and it was like a checkpoint, and there was an energy of the Sentinel there, somebody who guards our bases. Apparently, especially super secret ones, are not just guarded with guns or with being really far, away, or with big fences. They also, or some kind of, devices like cameras and things like that. They also have a Sentinel program to guard them psychically, and it makes a lot of sense to me, because I was a young person as a recruitee to the psychic programs that they did in the Cold War years. And of course, the Cold War years, both the Russians and the United States, and I believe the Chinese as well, were really looking into parapsychology aspects and psi abilities to try to look for an advantage. And of course, that's when the remote viewing programs happened with Ingo Swann and all of that, and Uri Geller and so forth. And I am a natural person that way, and I was not completely recruited, or I was recruited and I was one of those people that spent a life doing that and was sent back. I'm not sure. I have a time loop issue in my life. Both Bret and I do. And so I was in this room, and I was talking to this being, and they were like, who goes there, kind of, but not quite that harsh. And they said, let me check your credentials. And I'm like, credentials? I have credentials? Like, I didn't know I carried credentials with me, maybe in my energy field somehow. And then they said, okay, you're clear to go in if you wish. So apparently I've been credentialed somewhere along the line as a psychic Sentinel program myself. And I was like, did not know this. So I was like kind of freaking out. So I basically said, well, do you have a supervisor I can talk to? I was like, it's totally, I'm there. It's a real situation, like just as if you would go to a military base. And it was quiet for a while, and then suddenly there was an energy of a very kindly, not a very harsh, energetic being. Both were human. I believe the first one was human hybrid of some kind. And this being, picked it up as a man, was explaining to me, I said, what is this Sentinel program apparently that I'm in? And so he just told me, yeah, there's, obviously we have, psychic soldiery to, guard bases, guard secrets, and everything like that. And I apparently I'm in that and been for some time. However, what this discussion was when I asked, and he was totally, I guess I had the clearances for him to tell me this, he was totally willing to tell me that, what they found, I go, well, okay, so I'm not in your program, how come I can access things? And he basically said that they discovered when they trained psychic people that they did in the military mind, they put people's minds in a box. So they were, like, not creative. They weren't, like, free will, basically. They were military head, And so what happened was they have recruited a bunch of people that are free agents. So basically, they may not even know what they're doing, but they're putting the puzzle together, and may either know what they're doing or not know what they're doing. But the term I was given was assets under management. Assets under management. So there are people that are being used by, I don't know, like to help the planet. I mean, I didn't get any more than that. Like it's our job to fix this planet. This planet's in trouble, and there's a planetary level of human beings, human hybrid beings. Aliens who are interested in our welfare. We know there's the baddies, but these ones are all working together almost unconsciously in concert to turn this planetary system around. And at this point, I'm beginning, from the material that's been coming out that you guys have been putting out there and others, is that even the ones that have formerly been the baddies realize they've pushed it too far, and we have so much ecological damage, and we have so much destruction of, our society to function. People will just step over a homeless person and not even think about it, and not realize that homelessness is a function of our banks, making property too expensive for people to have homes. I mean, things like that are the way our food is managed with chemicals and GMOs and all that. And so we're in a pre-collapse quandary. And it really is going to take the ones that have been born here and waiting to do their stuff to fix it. And so here we are. And now even the bad guys know that if we don't fix it, they're culpable, and they have to cooperate with the fix at this point, I believe. So that I just wanted to kind of back up what happened. So that's where Bret and I were really talking about that Sentinel program, and we now know that we get observed. I've had times when I know they were watching me, and I could actually see them in their cubicle in front of their computer, and I'm like, back off. Or Jen and I have talked about when we're trying to do this level of work, how we get our computers act up, our phones act up, things happen that are really strange, and that's kind of, I just call it flack. And sometimes I've even told them, I said, you can watch, you can observe, you cannot interfere. We've got a job to do. I literally talk to them like out loud or in my mind telepathically. So I just wanted to share that part of kind of the story Bret and I deal with.
Fascinating. Bret, do you have something you want to respond to that or add?
Oh yeah. Well, yes. I think the UFOs and the ET phenomenon is really really awesome, and it sort of mirrors our correct history, but that's not really the thing that's really going to make this world awesome, That's just something that we should know about ourselves and about our past and our history, But what is really important is is learning from our mistakes, because we're not that advanced. We're really not, you know. We're making the same mistakes over and over again, and it seems to be planned that way, you know.
I think we're repeating our mistakes because we don't have all the information. If we had all the information, we would make different decisions. So that's my goal in this life, is to do what I can with force to bring forth this information so that we can start living our lives more authentically.
It's somewhat suppressed. There's a place where they can people can go. Your listeners go to UFOonMars.com, and they can see one of the discoveries I made on Mars, and it's more of an observation deck type of thing, but it looks kind of like the Jupiter too, from Lost in Space and all that jazz. So they say, there was also another thing I wanted to tell you about is a book that I'm writing called Digital Moon, and people can go to digitalmoonbook.com, and they can find out there's an excellent article there about one of the images that were given to me by an ex-NASA employee, and it's a very, very interesting. It will be a very interesting book when it comes out this fall.
Hey, I never know if I ever got what are they mining on the moon? What is it they're digging for?
Oh, what are they mining? Probably titanium and helium-3, among other things. And there's also they are actually getting oxygen by splitting. I believe they're splitting CO2 or something.
And getting the oxygen.
I've seen pictures of gases coming out of craters and jazz. So there's some kind of CO2 there, and I think they're splitting that or processing it like a plant would normally to produce oxygen. And so there's something like that.
Do you believe the moon is a natural formation, or is it artificial?
I believe it's natural. I think it has been quite the stop for many different extraterrestrial races out there. I don't really like the word races, but different types of beings, and it's been sort of an eclectic Star Wars type of stopping point before Earth, including us before we came to Earth.
You think? Sash, get that.
I just wondered, have you been on the surface? And if so, did you run into Andy Bishago and the CIA boys that are running around there? I really enjoyed Andy's story, and I really can't speak to it. It is his experience, and I've had similar experiences. We share one experience that where we were shown things from the future that we were gonna do or we were supposed to do, and like for me, it was showing me all of these lunar images and Mars images and space images. And they were already in color, just like I color them now to show people what they are, Wow.
They showed them to me. So they also showed him a paper or something that he was to write as an adult, So there are things that Andrew is saying that run right through me. I mean, they are completely, I validate them totally. I don't know from experience. It's his experience.
And then coming back to hear that you've retained the knowledge, and so that when you reconnect with it, you remember.
No, I have a photographic memory. That's why they did that to me. They showed me thousands of images, and they were all of little clippy pieces of space images that they never even showed the public.
So what did they want you to do with this? Are you saying they prepared you so that you would be the whistleblower?
Well, what that is, they actually asked me when I was 15 years old, what are these things, you know? And I told them I'm not sure, you know. I'm 15 years old already, you know what I mean? And so I found out later what they are exactly, because I really pushed hard to find out what exactly is going on. And the extraterrestrials are communicating through graphics and through vibration and frequency.
Uh-huh.
And because it breaks the language barrier and everything else. They don't have to worry about that. But people don't know how to look at it because it's dimensional, you know? They don't know how to see it. So when I show people things, I'm like, look, it's right there, you know, I see it three-dimensionally and everything else. And they can't really get it, you know. Their brains are, you know, it's like right brain, left brain thing. It's not seeing it, you know. So what I do is I sometimes I'll flip the image, like invert it, and then color it again. Sometimes people can see it that way. But you really hardly have to do that, you know. It's like right there. Like, for instance, in image 1197_MED from Lunar Orbiter 1, this image has the entire Pelagian pantheon in it. You know, the old thing, like Zeus and Hera, you know, and all the cast of characters, Theseus and the Minotaur and the whole business.
The whole zodiac.
Right. So it's yes, the whole zodiac is actually in that image. A representation of all of the zodiac in like almost caricature form, you know, like Leo, a lion, and you know, and the bull and Taurus and the Virgo.
Like Gobekli in places here on Earth. It's the same civilization.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's just very fascinating because they're wearing cold weather type clothing, you know. They're not wearing little skimpy, you know, super Hercules, you know, type of skimpy outfits or whatever that they have that they show them wearing in Greece or whatever. So we're talking about Dacians older than the Greeks. You know, we're talking about much older empire.
Yeah.
From up north.
I'd like to talk about that a little bit because whatever Bret's ability is to see this 3D stuff, and I have family members who are dyslexic. Dyslexic people often are very gifted visually. It's they want to make a 3D object of whatever they're looking at, and so when they try to read, they actually mix the letters around and stuff. So that's like a side effect of a gift of this vision ability is dyslexia. So Bret has this amazing
it's a gift. It's in a handicap, a parent handicap. That's fantastic.
Yeah, what it starts, and I'll just tell real quick. It starts when they're little babies and they're in the crib and they see something, see like part of their mother's face. Some little babies will make their whole mother's head in their body, and they like make it in their head in their mind's eye. And so Bret has this gift in space. He's just amazing. And when he first started, I was kind of on. We have a shared group that we were on, the Lunar Anomaly Research Society. And he started, I kind of met him right about the time he started decoding or beginning to see these things, and not just seeing like mining operations on the moon or square buildings or any kind of features that people normally look at. He started seeing these embedded imagery things and sharing, and pretty much it didn't really register with people. And I would have to say I'm probably on the other end of the spectrum because I was, as a young child, I was legally blind. So my whole visual thing developed a bit sideways as a result. So I'm like the opposite spectrum when I start looking at these things. And finally when I came here to be with, I saw some things. Well, when I came here with Bret, and he actually showed me the process. So I've watched him, you know, look at these things, and he lightly colorizes them. We call it illuminating process, so that you don't break the pattern that you're seeing on the image. And in the other mindset you have to do is to forget it's a lunar image. It's like you have to kind of forget for a minute, that that's not what you think the moon is. Okay, so here's a grayscale image. Now what's going on? And he would show me. He began to show me these things, and we're stuck with the fact that the images are very fuzzy because they, of course, reduce the resolution of the lunar photography. And so I began to work with this process with him, and the real breakthrough for me to really get what this was we have some links to a short video series that we did, and I'll make sure you guys get those because it cool. Shows the process. Yeah, and it shows this embedded imagery thing. Well, he was saying all kinds of stuff, but when he got onto this one image, 1197 MED, I'm not a good number person, I still remember it. That was like the key. And the reason why is in that image, there's a white splotch, okay, kind of a really bright patch that's right there. And you zoom in there, and there's an almost photorealistic, like classic nude man, kind of like like a art. And he's bent over, and he's weeping or something. And there's these two wings on either side of him, but they're not attached to his body like an angel would be. And I thought about that, and I'm a big fan of all the ancient mythology and all those stories, and I realized there's only one story that's about, and that is the story of Daedalus and Icarus, which Daedalus was the inventor he made the labyrinth to hold the Minotaur for the king of Crete, and he knew the secret. He knew the pattern of the labyrinth. He knew the maze secret. So the king put his son and him up in a tower to imprison them. And the birds came, they plucked the feathers off the birds, and they made wings. He made one pair of wings for him and one pair of wings for his son. And then they went to fly to the next island over, and he told the boy, just go straight and don't go too low, don't go too high, because if you go too low, the water from the ocean will drown you. It'll pull you down and get your feathers wet. If you go too high, the wax that they put the wings together would melt, and the feathers would fall apart. And it's a kind of a classic story. So basically, they're going along pretty good, and his son, who's named Icarus, flies too high and his wings melt and he falls down into the sea. Okay, so I'm looking at, that's Daedalus right there. That's the only thing it could be. And then Bret tells me that image is an Icarus crater on the moon.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. And I went, what is going on? Okay, because the other part of the story is when Daedalus finally gets to the island, he lands and he gives up his wings, and he builds a temple to, wait for it, Apollo.
Wow.
In the next image over, a couple images over in that series, you can actually see the face of Apollo right above Daedalus is over. And also you can see the image of Hades, because, of course, the boy went to the underworld, went to Hades. And then Bret, a couple of times later, he actually found Icarus standing behind Daedalus, and he's wearing real wings because he's an angel now, and he's going, Dad, I'm okay, I'm right here. And it was just weird, and I can see it. Like, when finally I can see it. Bret illustrated it, and my mind clicked, and boom, I could see it, and I'm totally freaking out. So then what happens for the next month or two is he started decoding image after image after image of these old stories that we see them as Greek. Oh, we gotta go?
Time. Well, thank you quickly. How do people go? Thanks.